What's up, Fantasy A-Team Nation? I'm your host, Josh Jenkins, and tonight we are going to unveil our Week 7 waiver wire picks. But before I start the show, I'd like to welcome my co-host, Zach Roberts, back to the show. Welcome back, Zach.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh. What's up, A-Team Fantasy Nation? Thanks for having me back, people. We can't wait to get to these video for you, man, get you guys these waiver wire picks. The bye weeks have started. They're upon us last week and this week moving forward. So let's make sure that we get some good picks to make sure that we can win these weeks. These are the crucial weeks, people.
All right, let's dive right in.
All right, man. So let's start with the quarterbacks. I've got Matt Ryan here versus Miami, 23rd ranked defense versus the pass. He's rostered in 24.5% of the leagues, started in 24.5%, all the people that have him started. All right, so 33 of 45 last week, 342 yards, 2 touchdowns. Calvin Ripley will be back this week, and he's ready off the bye week, so you know he's going to have a hot hand. He's going to be demanding the ball. So look for that hookup and that chemistry. I look for him to have another solid game, 300-plus yards, 2+ touchdowns. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. They've had a week to recoup. Ridley will be back. Cordell Patterson, Pitts.
He had a monster game.
So I look for a big game out of Matt Ryan this week.
Yep, and they're going against 23rd ranked defense, so it's a lower half of the D's. So they ought to do pretty good this week. So pick him up and be ready to play him this week if you have someone on a bye, or man, stash him and be ready to plug and play on these bye weeks. So next I got Tua. They're versus Atlanta, 28th ranked defense. He struggled a little bit to get the win last week, but he still threw for 329 yards, 33 for 47, two TDs, but only 1 pick. So look for him to try to build off last week, try to not have the pick and read the defenses better. It's Atlanta, going against Matt Ryan. There's going to be a lot of points in this game, probably a lot of yards. I look for Atlanta to go up and Miami to try to be chasing them. I look for him to have 250-plus yards and probably 2 touchdowns or more this week. So look for Ridley to get the ball, Pitts to get the ball, and they're probably even going to feed Mike Davis the ball to try to make the defense honest. So ought to be a lot of points to be had in this matchup on both sides.
Yeah, I agree. I'm assuming that he'll be throwing to Gaskins as he's coming out of the backfield. Their tight end, Jasheski, ever how you want to pronounce his name.
Jaseki, yeah.
And didn't you say Devonte Parker was coming back?
Yeah, we're going to get to him on the wide receiver thing. But, yeah, Devonta Parker's going to be back this week. He's only 20.9% or something like that in the league. So him and Tua already had kind of a chemistry from the offseason, the first couple games when Tua played. So that'll be a good hookup. And Waddle's come into his own now. So there's going to be trying to figure out who they're going to have to double team there. And like you said, with Gaskins and Jaseki, both of them are athletes. So look, and even Ronnie Brown might get more of the ball. So the way they split the ball there in the backfield is tough from week to week. But there's a lot of points, I think, to be had in that matchup. So next I got Teddy Bridgewater, number 3 versus Cleveland. They're 30th ranked versus the pass at QB. Teddy Bridgewater's only ranked in only rostered 9.7% of leagues, so he's out there. He had a tough game last week, but he still put up 35 of 49, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. But he did have 3 picks and 5 sacks. So I look for him against the Cleveland defense to get a little bit, probably less sacks and less picks. It's going to be hard to beat 3 picks and 5 sacks. I believe they helped fix that this week. I think that he'll probably throw for 300-plus yards and 2 touchdowns probably. I believe that, he's another good guy that you could pick up and plug and play depending on the matchup. And this week he actually has a pretty decent matchup. So depending on if you have someone on a bye or hurt on quarterback, you can pick him up and play him this week or stash him.
Yeah, I agree. I look for him to have similar numbers from last week. Hopefully he'll cut down on his 3 picks.
Yeah, I'm giving up sacks is tough for his team to keep. That's why I think they lost, is those 5 sacks to try, that's a drive killers. You know what I mean? When you get sacked, it usually means you're usually going to give up the drive almost always. It's hard to overcome them, especially 5 of them. So next I got Sam Darnold versus the Giants, New York Giants, 27 versus the pass. He's ranked in he's rostered in 48.3% of the league. 42% of people are starting him. He was only 17 for 41. We keep putting him on these waiver wire lists because he's a solid quarterback. He's not going to win you probably your matchup, but he's going to keep you in it so that somewhere else can help you, somebody overperform and be able to win the matchup for you. Last week, he was only 17 of 41, 207 yards and 1 touchdown. He did have 1 pick and got sacked 4 times. However, they had a tough matchup last week. This week's a lot more favorable. I think there'll be a lot of passing yards in this game. I think that he'll probably throw for 250-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think that he cuts back on the sacks this week. He's got good footwork. It's just that defense last week kind of chewed him up a little bit. It was a tough matchup. So what do you think, partner?
Yeah, I agree. Darnold started off the year hot, and then he got into a 3-game skid where he started throwing some picks. But I believe this week will be a turnaround as they face the New York Giants. Like I said, they're pretty much rebuilding. I think the defense is pretty weak there. So I believe this is the week he gets it back on track, and he puts up probably over 300 and at least a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, you're probably right. I was on more on the 250 side, but yeah, he could easily throw for 300 this week. So I agree. Number 5, I got Jimmy Garoppolo versus Indy, the 25th ranked versus the past QB. Only 3.9% of people have Garoppolo because he'd been injured, so you could easily pick him up this week. A lot of people dropped him if they had him. He's coming back from the calf injury, and he's super available for the future. So I believe, unless Trey Lance, solidified himself, which we haven't been talking about him, so they've been struggling a lot. I believe that he'll be able to put up, if he plays this week, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. I look for San Francisco to start trying to build back and try to, save their season and try to look for the playoffs. So Garoppolo will have pretty decent numbers this week. Look for Deebo Samuel to get the ball a bunch.
Yeah, I agree. I look for him to have a pretty solid game. But I look for Deebo to blow up again this week coming off the bye.
Oh, I agree. I think they're ready, man. They're poised. With that said, you had somebody. I have another one, but go ahead and tell me you had, what was it, Mack Jones?
Yeah, I wanted to mention Mack Jones. He's starting to impress me more and more. Last week, he was 15 of 21 for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 pick, though. He's only rostered in 8.5% of the leagues and started at 1.1. They've got a very favorable matchup with the New York Jets coming in at number 7, ranked against the quarterback. So I look for him to have a big week.
Yeah, Mack Jones really played well last week, and he's starting to become super efficient with his numbers. You know how Belichick is there. He's really good. That's what he did with Tom Brady. He tried to put him in a position to win, which is what he's doing with Mack Jones. That double tight end set is really, starting to blossom there. So we'll be talking about Hunter Henry too at the end of this, but Mack Jones sure coming up. He's super efficient. Like I said, he had 229 passing yards, 2 TDs. So I think he can help get rid of the 1 pick. When you're a rookie, it's hard to read all the defenses. Every now and then you're going to pick wrong. And Mack Jones actually seems super intelligent. Looks like he has a good football IQ. So I believe that he'll get these things fixed throughout the season. And definitely is another guy that, look, he's super available. He's someone you could pick up, plug and play, and in the right matchups. And with the bye weeks and people getting injured, like look what happened to Daniel Jones. I know he was able to come back, but guys getting concussions. These guys are taking a lot of hits these last several weeks. So it's going to be an extra long season. So here's another guy you can pick up and stash and be ready to. Not like I said about the other guys. He's not putting up numbers that's going to win you your matchup every week, but he's going to keep you in the matchup and allow someone else to help you win it. Maybe he goes off a couple games in the next 8 games or whatever, but he's going to just put up solid, efficient numbers every week.
Yeah, I agree.
And then go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to mention Carson Wentz. He didn't have a spectacular game. He's kind of like, worse than Mack Jones' game. Not that Mack Jones was a bad game, but Carson Wentz plays San Francisco 24th ranked defense. He's only rostered at 19%, and he was 11 for 20, but 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a pretty tough matchup last week too. So this week's a lot more favorable. I believe he'll have a better game and should throw for probably 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is pretty solid QB 2/3 numbers, probably lower end of 2s, upper end of 3. But in these bye weeks, those are the guys that help keep you in it and allow you to win your matchups. So just wanted to throw him out there.
All right, folks. That concludes the quarterback portion of week 7 waiver wire. We're going to jump right into running backs.
All right, yeah. So number 1, I got Kenyon Drake versus Philly, 27th ranked defense. He's rostered in 40.5% of the leagues, but only 7.2% started him because they share carries there with Josh Jacobs. So Kenyon Drake hadn't been being utilized as probably not part of John Gruden's plan. But now that Gruden's gone, the head coach spoke up and said he wants to utilize, Kenyon Drake in the offense and in the pass game a lot more. So last week he was canning the ball 4 times for 34 yards and a touchdown. And then he was only throwing the ball twice, but for 39 yards and a touchdown. So he's super efficient. They have him installed now in the offense. With that said, he's definitely somebody you could pick up and play on a bye week, plug and play like this week where there's a 27th ranked defense. Last week was a tougher matchup, and he still had good numbers for the touches that he got. His touches, I believe, are only going to go up. You could pick him up and stash him, but I believe this week you could pick him up and play him depending on who you have. Like if you have some guys that are out, are really questionable that you're afraid they might not put up numbers, put him in, man. What do you have to lose? I believe he gets the ball more than 4 times rushing and gets thrown the ball more than twice this week. I bet you he'll have somewhere between 10 and 12 touches this week or more, depending on if he gets hot. So with that said, Philly's kind of a crazy offense, so they could put up some numbers or they could struggle. It's hard to say. But I don't see after the game last week versus Denver, I don't see when Las Vegas has the ball, they're going to keep the foot on the pedal. So with that said, I think they're going to try and feed this guy the ball. So I'm going to pick him up in the places that I can in my leagues, just because of what I've read. I could be wrong, but that's what he said.
All right. The Raiders, they they had a good game this past week. I'm wondering just how much that is to do with John Gruden being fired, like we talked about last week. But yeah, he's worthy of a pickup stash, and see if they start him this week.
Right. I think he's going to share carries with Josh Jacobs, but I believe he's going to be installing the offense, and that offense is more of a passing offense with Derek Carr anyways at the helm. It seems like they were just trying to force the run a lot, which, you got to do that to get behind the defenses with guys like Ruggs, who we have on this list later. So number 2, though, I've got Dante Freeman versus Cincinnati. They're 16th versus the run, so they're about average or middle of the road. Man, though, he's only rostered in 0.4% because he just came, on the scene with the injury last week. So, and they picked him up off of the free agent list and had him on the practice squad for a week or something like that. So he went 9 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown. I believe he'll be way more involved this week. Latavius Murray's hurt, so, that just means he's probably going to get the ball and the opportunity more. Of course, Lamar Jackson's going to do most of the running there, so it's going to be hard to predict what he'll do. But I think he'll have more carries, and with the way they utilize him in the red zone, because he lined up for the third downs and then the red zone. So that means he gets a lot of red zone touches, or he's going to. So I believe he might actually get 2 touchdowns this week. So more carries, more yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that running back situation there in Baltimore, being that Lamar runs it so much. they don't utilize their running backs as much as they should. It's not a traditional offense.
Well, Lamar you can't do it forever. They're gonna, they're starting to try to punish him. So if I was them, I would, have more plays where it looks like Lamar's running RPOs where they hand it off and stuff.
But they gotta have a running back in the game. So one of the three is going to get the ball.
Right. We'll find out who. So he's available. You could pick him up and stash him. So.
But last week he got utilized.
And the reason why the defense didn't have no tape on him. So when he lined up, they just figured he hadn't been in any of the plays. But little did they know they had a couple plays, in each direction for him. So worked out good for him and for Baltimore. I can't believe they played, beat them by so much when that team beat us, but we were only lost by 1 point to them. So just shows how crazy the NFL is, people. Next, I've got Eli Mitchell. I know you had him too. Versus Indy. Indy's still the 5th ranked defense, but it doesn't matter. The way San Francisco runs the ball, they're kind of like Baltimore. They're just such a run heavy offense. And same thing with Cleveland, such a run heavy offense that there's a guy you stash if you can. He's rostered in 41.2% of the league, and he had 9 carries for 43 yards last week. I believe those, and 2 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown. Or no, he had 0 touchdowns. But he's a good guy to pick up and stash for the future for bye weeks, and he'll be good for the bye week matchups.
Yeah, I agree. With all these bye weeks coming up, San Francisco's got to have somebody in it running back, and I think he's the lead back with all their injuries that they've got. So
yeah. Trying to sprinkle Trey Sermon in, but I don't know if the dude isn't figuring out the run blocking schemes or what. But I had high hopes for Trey Sermon this year because he was such a stud in college. But apparently there's some problems there. I don't know if the offense is too complicated or if they're just going with the guys that have already been, in the spot, and he's just learning as he goes. So look for him to be able to be on here later maybe, but Trey Sermon's still kind of a question mark. And with that said, Eli Mitchell's available in most of the leagues, or at least a little bit over half. So he's another pickup and play, per bye week and matchups. So you also got, who was it, Alex Collins?
Yeah, I've got Alex Collins. Last week he had a good game, stepping in with an injured Carson with a neck injury. Last week, 20 rushes, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. He's rostered in 53.5% of the leagues and only started in 41.2. This week, they're going up against the New Orleans Saints, and they are ranked 8th against the run.
So, yeah, that's a tough one because if you didn't pick him up last week, he's going to be tougher to pick up, like you said, 53%. Well, people will know about this guy. He had a good game last week. And it's going to continue until Russell Wilson comes back and the passing game revitalizes. Nothing against Geno Smith, but he's just no Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson knows that offense inside and out like the back of his hand. So until Russ comes back, look for guys like Alex Collins to get the ball a lot more and their offense to sputter in the passing game. So, DK Metcalf's going to struggle a little bit, and so is Tyler Lockett. Not saying that they won't still get some of their looks, but it's going to be harder for them to have their high ceilings that they've had in the past. And until then, this guy, Alex Collins, they're going to feed him 20 carries. I mean, that's a lot. And he showed that he could take the load. And, he put up 101 yards. That's good in this league every year. It doesn't matter what season it's been. You put up 100 yards every week. That's good for running back numbers. And he got the solid touchdown. So he's another pickup and play. I play him this week. New Orleans does have a good defense versus the run, but with the bye week starting, a lot of people are weak at running back, so people are trying to throw people on, from the scrap heap out there. And with that said, you pick him up, you can still win those matchups on the running back matchup. So,
yeah, and I've also got Khalil Herbert, Chicago Bears. He's filling in as the lead back since David Montgomery went down with his knee injury. Last week, he had 19 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Also had 2 receptions for 15 yards. This week they go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ranked ninth against the run. Herbert is rostered in 48.8% of the leagues, started in 41.5%.
Yeah, if you're hurting at running back or you have guys on bye week, here's a good pickup. And like he said, until Montgomery comes back, they're going to feed this guy the ball. And 19 carries is a lot. And with Justin Fields is still struggling a little bit, they are going to lean on the run. And they knew that going into the season, even if they were going to have Andy Dalton as a quarterback, that's who they started in the season. So now that Dalton's out and Fields is in, he's a rookie. He's still learning. They're going to lean on the run a lot. And with that said, man, you guys got to make use of it. These are the diamonds in the rough to help get you through some of the tough matchups in the bye weeks. Pick him up and play him. Like you said, he's only about 48% in the roster, so he should be out there. And you could play him this week or, any week moving forward because he's going to be a solid part of their offense unless he gets hurt, but he's going to keep getting the ball because they don't have anybody else, man. Justin Fields is having struggling to get the ball out to Robinson and Mooney and Kmet. So with that, man, they're just going to feed this guy the ball. And they were ready from the offseason going into the season that they knew they were going to utilize the run a lot.
Yeah, I can't figure out that team whatsoever. Fields, a rookie. He ain't as good as Dalton. They need to put Dalton back in that offense. At least he can get the ball to Allen Robinson, which is their best player on the team. But that's here nor say. So,
yeah, I think Fields just got thrown to the wolves a little bit this year because they thought he was going to be the backup, right? And they put Dalton out there, so he didn't get prepared, I think, as much as he would have if they thought he was going to start. Now that they're in the, already in the season, it's hard to try to teach him. So he's just out there baptism from fire. I think this year he's going to struggle, but I think by the end of the year, Fields gets it together. The kid's a winner, dude. He has a winner's mentality. He only lost twice in college, and that was in playoff games, once against Alabama and then once against like Clemson or somebody. So the kid is a baller. He beat everybody else but those 2 championship teams that he lost to. So, and those 2 teams that he lost to went on to win the championship those 2 seasons in the playoffs. So kid's a baller. I think he's got a player's heart. So I look for him to bounce back. Maybe not this week, but in future weeks. So he'll get it together.
All right, folks, that concludes the running back part of week 7 waiver wire. We're going to now jump right into the wide receivers.
All right, yeah, because I got Marquez Callaway versus Seattle versus the 24th ranked versus the wide receiver. He's in the roster to 19.9% of leagues, 13.7% started. He was 4 for 8 last week for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns and a red zone target. Should have another great game versus Seattle, they have a weak secondary. Their corners and safeties are kind of weak this year. Callaway can punish them on the over the top, kind of like a Ruggs or a Hill. And he's a great player to pick up, seems to be heating up. So with that said, man, I'd pick him up and use him as a plug and play for matchups. This week he has a good matchup versus Seattle.
Yeah, I agree. He is the number 1 target there in New Orleans until Michael Thomas comes back. I think Thomas is I think he's still a couple of weeks out.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, he's their number 1 option there for Jameis Winston. So, he's always worth, stash on your bench. Play him if you got to during a bye week or something like that.
Agreed. And this week's not a bad matchup, so you can play him this week if you have someone out or hurt. Number 2, Jamison Crowder versus New England, the 13th versus the wide receiver. Crowder's only rostered 21.9% and only 14.8 have started him. He's a big red zone threat. He only had 4 catches last week for 24 yards and 0 touchdowns, but they had a tough game last week. And this week it's a little bit better matchup, and he's one of the main targets there for Zach Wilson?
Yeah.
So I think Wilson's starting to get better and better. They're kind of leaning on the run a little bit, and they're coming off a bye week. So I believe they have their passing, what they want to do with their passing game. try to at least be fixed and probably have some plays that are like their bread and butters that they're going to try to utilize. So I look for Crowder to be a part of that.
Yeah, I agree. He is the veteran there on that team. I think the more chemistry that him and Zach Wilson builds, the more receptions that he'll get, and always a touchdown threat there in New York.
I agree. Next, I've got Devonte Parker. He's coming back from injury, and he's going against Atlanta's 23rd ranked defense versus the pass. Because he's coming back from injury, I guess a lot of people dropped him. He's only rostered 20.2%. But the guy's a super stud, and Jalen Waddle has emerged as one of the main targets there for whether it's Brissett or Tua. So if that's the case, that means they're going to be trying to double team Waddle some because he's been a threat and they have him on film. Devontae Parker's a stud and he's a veteran, so he's going to find all the open spots. So between Waddle and Parker, one of them's going to be double teamed, the other one's going to be open. Plus they have Jasecki and Gaskins coming out of the backfield who likes to get the ball a lot on the pass. So I think, there's a lot of other targets, but Devontae Parker is a stud, man, and I think that he demands the ball when he's on the field. Can't believe he's only rostered in 20.2% of leagues. I would go pick him up if you can, people. He's a solid. He could easily be a number one when he's back to his old self again, and he's definitely a wide receiver number 2 no matter what. So he's a stud at if you can pick him up, go pick him up. You can play him every week or just on your matchups if he has 2 other studs. But I'm telling you, go pick this guy up.
Well, I think the reason why he's rostered so low, he's been hurt all year pretty much. So I guess people just didn't want to, keep him on the bench and take up a roster spot when they could add somebody that's being utilized week to week.
Didn't you have Daryl on here? What is he?
Daryl Mooney?
Yeah, you can go ahead and say his stats.
Yeah. Last week, 5 receptions, 45 yards, and a touchdown. 1 red zone target. He's rostered in 37.8% of leagues. Started in just 3.8%. This week they take on Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ranked 28th against the wide receiver.
Yeah, I think, what'd you say? He had 1 touchdown, 1 red zone target?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's out, and I think I saw or read that he's out targeting Allen Robinson. I think they said Komet and Mooney are out targeting Robinson just because they're having such a struggling problem there in Chicago. So I would definitely, if you can pick up Mooney for the time being, play him this week versus 28th ranked versus the wide receiver. He's gonna get some targets, but no telling how many. It could be 5, it could be 10. You know what I mean? So he's kind of a question mark as far as production wise, but when he does get the ball, he likes to produce. This guy is pretty solid stuff too.
All right, next on the list, he's been a pretty consistent ad on our waiver wire picks, is AJ Green, Arizona Cardinals. Last week, he had 5 receptions, 79 yards, and a touchdown. They targeted him 3 times last week in the red zone. So they're trying to get him the ball. He's only rostered in 29.3% of leagues, started in 6.5. This week, they're up against the Houston Texans, ranked 5th against the pass.
And he's a super stud too. Like, he's a big, huge red zone threat. He's got such a big body. And between him and Hopkins, man, they're getting the ball a lot in the red zone. So, man, if you could pick him up and he's available, I already have him on one of my teams in my league, in my money league. So definitely pick this guy up and play him. They're starting to, him and Murray have definitely got some chemistry now that they've played enough together. So it's kind of like, who do you double team there? Do you double team him, Hopkins, Kirk? You got Edmonds coming out of the backfield, and they've got a pretty decent tight end with Ertz coming in. So Ertz is going to start playing in Arizona, and they just got traded there. So I think that he will be another guy to be utilized a lot there, especially in the red zone. He's a super wily vet, So great pickups, man. I got Tim Patrick on here also. He's going against Cleveland 27th ranked defense versus the wide receiver, and he's 29.8% roster. So you could definitely go out and pick him up. He was 3 for 6 last week for 42 yards and a touchdown. I think him and Bridgewater kind of have some chemistry together. Bridgewater's starting to notice that he can get open down the field. So I look for him to have a bigger game this week.
Yeah, I agree. That seems to be Bridgewater's target, his main guy there. The exception of Gordon out of the backfield. And he's been a constant on our waiver wire picks. So I look for more of the same from him this week.
I mean, he hasn't been spectacular. It's kind of like what we said earlier. He's another guy you can plug and play on a bye week if someone's injured. He's not going to win the matchup for you unless he goes off. He has he doesn't have a super high ceiling because Bridgewater and the way they run their offense there is just kind of like mediocre, I guess you could say. So with that said, they don't have a bunch of big plays there. But man, he's still solid and he gets the ball, 3 to 5, maybe 3 to 8 times a game. And when he does, he produces almost 50 plus yards and a touchdown. I mean, it's crazy. That's why we keep putting him on these videos, people. And so you also had Henry Ruggs, didn't you?
I did. Last week was like a breakout week for him. The Raiders played well. Last week, he had 3 receptions for 97 yards and a touchdown. He's rostered in 41% of leagues, started in just 9.2. This week, he goes up against Philadelphia Eagles, ranked 4th against the receiver.
So, yeah, I mean, he's another solid guy who puts up solid numbers when he gets the ball. He usually catches it too. Like you said, 3 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Like I was telling you guys too, that I think Gruden gone, they kind of took the cap off the top of the passing offense. Looks like they want to throw the ball a little more, maybe to open the pass instead of trying to run the ball to open the pass. They have a little bit new philosophy. They're a little bit revitalized. They played well last week versus Denver when everyone thought because Gruden was gone in the middle of the, week that it would hurt them, and they came out and played well. So hopefully they continue to build on that momentum and try to keep it going for as long as they can. At some point, it's going to fizzle out, and they're going to go back to being the Raiders. But try to make use of that, man. Henry Ruggs in the certain matchups and his availability, man. Pick him up and play him. They're going to throw the ball to him over the top whenever they get the opportunity. Carr's got a good arm. So,
you have anything else?
Yeah, I got a Chiefs player, man. I got Mecole Hardman on here versus 32 ranked Tennessee pass defense, 32.8% rostered, only 11% started in. He was 4 for 5 for 62 yards, and he's a red zone threat, and he also gets red zone touches where they run the ball. He gets a chance to run the ball on in and around. Sometimes they even line him up in the backfield, just like a Tyreek Hill type of thing. Anytime Tyreek Hill's banged up or whatever, he's got the speed, the next fastest on the team to fill in. So that's another plus in the middle of the game. If Tyreek goes out like he did last week with a quad in the middle of the game and then come back, the plays that he's out or the plays he's too tired, Mecole Hardman's going to step up. So good guy you can pick up and plug and play on a bye week or a guy gets injured. That's all I got for the wide receivers. I'm ready for the tight ends.
All right, let's jump right into the tight ends.
All right, well, I'll name 2 off the bat, and then you can name the rest. I've got Ricky Seals-Jones versus Green Bay, 19th ranked versus the tight end. He's only rostered 2.1%. After the last 2 weeks, man, he's sure put up solid numbers, and I think they're going to start to lean on him. He's proved to them he's a good vet, and they like to utilize him there in Washington. Seems like that Troy Heineke sure likes him a lot. He was 4 for 4 receptions on 6 targets, 58 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, he's heating up, and the chemistry is building between him and Taylor Heineke. I think next week he'll have a good week, and probably with what he's done when Logan Thomas comes back in a week or 2, they'll probably go to a double tight end set or until Logan's, back to 100%. And they'll continue to utilize him. He's been producing. Why would you not throw him the ball still? So that's what I got for him. You got anything on that?
Yeah, I believe that's one of Heineke's favorite targets out there, besides Terry McLaurin. So he seems to be a pretty durable tight end as of week 6. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he wasn't being utilized in the first 2 or 3 weeks as much. He didn't have the percentage snaps that Logan Thomas did. But now that in Thomas's absence, he's filled in well. So I look for them to continue to utilize him. Usually you only utilize your backup because your main guy's out. But when your backup performs like he had, you're going to go ahead and set up some plays to have them both on the field or have one play or the other in the red zone. And Seals proved himself, Ricky Seals Jones or whatever. So I also got last week Cincinnati. It was a tough matchup for him, but CJ Uzumwah, he took his 3 catches and caught all 3 of them for 15 yards and a touchdown. He's only rostered in 4.8% of the leagues, and he's playing Baltimore's 30th ranked versus the tight end. So they give up a lot to the tight end. It's kind of like the place where they've been. And with that being, I believe that CJ is going to have even better numbers this week. I'd look for him to have more like 5 or 6 targets, probably for more like 45 or 50 yards, and probably at least a touchdown, if not 2, because he's such a big, fast, athletic guy in the red zone. When you have those guys, you utilize them. I mean, the Tony Gonzalez's of the world, so you utilize those guys. You can pick him up and plug him and play him in the bye weeks, and he's got a good matchup this week.
All right. I'm going to go with the few I have. Newly acquired Zachertz to the Arizona Cardinals. Last week, he had 4 receptions, 29 yards, and a touchdown. Had 1 red zone target. He's only rostered in 44.3% of leagues, started in 35.1. So, there's a lot of targets out there in Arizona, but I believe he could be a very dependable target out there for him. Even, a bigger opportunity to score a touchdown.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is he's going to be at a red zone threat because of just his pure being a veteran. He knows how to read the defenses and get in the open spots, especially in a quick boom situation in the red zone. And also, he's a big guy, so I think he'll get the ball in the red zone and possibly in the short or medium range 3rd down situations. If he and Murray can build any sort of chemistry, good Lord, look out. The league's going to be on notice because they're just adding so much offensive pieces there. And it's just ridiculous that even if someone goes down, they're not going to sputter. I look for Arizona to be one of the best teams this year, not only just in record, but also for fantasy points. The guys in their offense are 4 points. But they're starting to get to be like Tampa Bay, where they have so many different guys. It's hard to pick from week to week. So that's why you have to pay attention to the matchups. This week, what was Houston ranked versus the tight end?
Houston was ranked.
Isn't that who they're playing, Arizona?
Arizona is playing. I'm not for sure.
Okay, well, who's he playing? Do you have it written down?
Zachertz, playing the Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay, he's playing the Raiders. My bad. So versus the Raiders, what are they giving up to the tight end? Are they in the last part of the defense?
27th ranked.
Yeah, so they're 27th. This is a matchup that you want to play in. If he's going against someone who's like 10th versus the tight end or better, probably not a week that he's going to get a chance to get a look. And if he does, they're going to be minimal. But in these weeks where he's versus the 27th ranked versus the tight end, he's going to be installed in the offense to get the ball. I know he just got there, but I'll guarantee they use him this week. So if you want to wait a week to use him and see what the matchup is next week, but this is a week he could surprise people by playing him, and he could surprise the defensive coordinators on the other team and get the ball in the red zone. Who else you got? Hunter Henry, you said?
Yeah, I've got Hunter Henry. This week they faced the New York Jets, ranked 23rd against the tight end. Last week he had 2 receptions, 25 yards, and a touchdown. He had 1 red zone target. He's only rostered in 55.8%, started in 47.6%.
Yeah, most of the people that picked him up are playing. So, you can continue with that trend. If you can pick him up and play him, especially in the right matchups. He's become Mack Jones, one of his favorite targets. They build a lot of chemistry, it seems like, already. And I look forward to get better moving forward. Mack Jones has got a great IQ. and he's moving. You know, his ceiling's moving up and up. I look for him. He's super efficient, which means Hunter Henry's probably going to get the ball. You know, as a blanket tight end to kind of help alleviate when he's getting pressure and in the red zones, probably on the third down as well. So he's another guy you can pick up and play depending on the matchups, save him for the bye weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Next one I want to add is Durham Smitty, 5 receptions, 59 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, had 1 red zone target. He's rostered in 0% of leagues and started in 0.
Wow.
Yeah.
This Mack week,
Atlanta, 14th against the tight end.
so he'll have a chance to get the ball this week again. See if he can put up those numbers again and give you something you can pick up and stash. Or since he's 0% roster, you could even just wait a week and see what he does. But we're getting to be about almost the middle of the season. You don't want to wait too long on some of these guys that you've seen. Watch the film and see if you like his play. He played solid last week when he got the opportunity, and he made the best of his opportunities. So I think he's another good guy you could pick up and play in the right matchups on the bye weeks.
Well, guys, that concludes week 7 waiver wire picks. Go pick these guys up if you can. Throw them in your lineup, and hopefully they pays off for you this week. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, hit that subscribe button. Have any questions, comments, drop them down below, or hit us up on Twitter at FantasyAteam1, and we'll answer them as quickly as possible. And remember, friends, don't let friends auto draft.